It's time for the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash. Talking about indie comics. Oh yeah. Talking about indie comics. Oh yeah. It's time for the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash. It's time for the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash. Talking about indie comics. Oh yeah. Talking about indie comics. Oh yeah. It's time for the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash. It's time for
3, 2, 1. What is going on, everyone? It is another fine episode of the Unnamed Indie Comic Show. We are on episode number 20, which is actually more if you count the hangout episodes, which aren't in there. It might be like 25, but who cares? We're not really counting numbers. Skip is joining me as always, my venerable co-host and superstar of the show. The reason why you're all here. Skip, how you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good, my friend. It's been an interesting week for me in general, but definitely an interesting week regarding comics, and I'm sure I'll probably get to talk a little bit about that particular thing as we get into the show. But Ash, how are you?
I am doing okay. I had a pretty good dinner tonight, so having a good meal always kind of lifts your spirits. So I like that. And you know me, I love my food.
Yes, you do.
And I'm drinking a cherry lime Dr. Pepper, one of my favorite soft drinks. Delicious.
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, right? Thursday is my busiest day for like working and stuff, and I like to have a drink, but I'm getting so old, like waking up and then Thursday is like, oh my God, what am I doing? So I've been having to kind of cut off drinking on Wednesdays, and it sucks. But Dr. Pepper, you gotta have fresh lime juice, like squeeze a lime, and then just a little bit of cherry syrup. It's fantastic. Sounds gross, but it's not.
It actually doesn't sound that bad. Sounds pretty refreshing.
Yeah, it is. I got it on a kick a long time ago. When my friend's mom, I was at his house, and she's like one of those Midwestern moms, and she's really cool. And she's like, "Do you want a cherry do you want a lime Dr. Pepper?" And I was like, "What? That sounds nasty. Who would put lime in their Dr. Pepper?"
Right.
But I tried it, and it was like mind blowing. I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." And then fast forward many, many, many years later, I'm like going to Sonic, because Sonic's one of the only places you can get like fresh lime, because you can't do like lime syrup or whatever. It has to be like fresh limes. So I was like, oh yeah, Sonic's got fresh limes. I can order a Dr. Pepper with fresh lime in it. And then I was like, I like the cherry limeades. I wonder like if we did cherry lime. And I tried it, and then I got stoked, and I was like, oh, this is my drink. Except like no one can afford to drink at Sonic because it's like movie theater prices for their sodas. Good Lord. So I make them at home now.
Yeah, man. They can get pricey. They're tasty, but yeah, they can get...
Yeah, like $5 for a large soda.
Yeah, that's nuts.
I was like, what the...
That really is like movie prices.
Yeah, I'm like, Jesus, come on. And McDonald's is like $1 for any size you want. And I get it. You can't put the lime and the cherry juice in it, but is it really worth $4 extra for that?
Right.
Oh well. Anyways, do you have any beverages, or did you get a nice dinner tonight? What's going on with you?
Dinner was sufficient, but as far as drinks are concerned, I do have a little Cabernet Sauvignon.
Oh,
here. So
man, of course the night I'm not drinking, you are. We just can't match up.
nope, I know. we'll coordinate one day. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. But
Cabernet is one of my go-to wines.
mhm.
Mm.
It's good, man. This one's pretty tasty too. I'm surprised at how particularly smooth it is for not a very expensive bottle of wine, but nonetheless, that's what I decided to go with tonight. So it's
Cool,
been treating
cool.
me pretty good.
All right, I'm gonna have to break my rule next week. Now I'm wanting some Cabernet. Uh, all right, cool. Well, I guess we're here to talk about comics.
So
Did you get to the comic book store today?
I was able to get to a comic book store today to get one particular comic. Um, it's interesting. So I had a few comics on my list. I think around between 6 and 8 comics that I was pulling. But there was one that there was really two that I wanted to read the most. One of them, conclusion of a story, which it was the book Compass, which is coming out under Greg Rucka's kind of imprint that he has over at Image, and my buddy Justin Greenwood does the art on it, and it was the last issue, so I really wanted to make sure I read that. But by chance, I had to actually go see him yesterday, and when I saw him yesterday, he had his comps, so he gave me a copy, so I didn't have to go to the comics book store and pick it up and pay for it. Though I was ready to, I would have gladly have paid, to read the conclusion of the story, but fortune shone its face on good old Skip that day, so I was able to get a copy, and man, it was a very satisfying ending. So that was one of the books that I was looking for and that I got, but the other one was actually Monster Kill Squad by Bad Idea Comics.
Oh, very nice. I didn't get to the store again today. Wednesdays is I when I don't have many books out, I feel like driving all the way down to the store is tough. And I'm gonna be out and about tomorrow, as I normally am on Thursday. So I was like, I'll just push it back to Thursday. But there's one book I need to track down that came out, or supposedly came out, is the new oh Jesus, the new Reckless book. Didn't that come
Oh
out?
yes. So it got pushed back a week,
Oh,
actually.
all right.
Yeah. So I'm part of the newsletter that Ed Brubaker does, and part of it. I'm recipient on the list. I'm on the list, so I get it. And yeah, it was a few weeks ago he put out and said that that they pushed it back a week and involving the paper shortage. He said, but it was just being pushed back a week. It wasn't going to be more than that. The
Okay.
book was already ready to go. So that one is going to be coming out next week.
All right. Cool. Well, then I don't have to sweat it, because I was like, I gotta try to find this book. Because the last one that came out took me weeks to get because it sold out instantly.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't on top of it. I went on Thursday. I was like,
Mm.
hey, you got that book? Nope, sold out. Oh, I think I told this story about the store that I went to, that they have a really good deal on their graphic novels and trade paperbacks. And he was just like kind of a jerk about it. He's like, oh, take a couple weeks. And I was like, geez, all right. So, yeah.
Man, yeah, they are hot right now. And Destroy All Monsters is the name of the next one. That one comes out next week, the week of the 13th. Oh no, this is the 13th, so it'd be the week of the 20th, October 20th. Hey, it's coming out a little closer to Halloween, and it's a book that's called Destroy All Monsters. So I'm down with the theme of it all. I don't mind waiting for it to be a little closer to Halloween.
All right. I'm having some problems here streaming the web page to you. And when I toggle off it to look at the page, it like shuts it off on my streaming. I'm like, what's going on, Discord? But we're going to be talking about some books, looking at the new books that came out on the rack this week, having a little virtual comic tour. As always, these books are, gosh darn it, these books are, and it's showing up on the screen. You can see, look at that. It goes, I don't know what it's doing.
Yeah, well, maybe I could just look at it from the stream. just be a little behind.
No, you can't be. Oh, there it goes. It's
Okay.
popping back up. I don't. People who are listening in and not see, there it goes again. It like shuts off.
Yeah,
It's
being very. Oh, there we go.
let me try to reshare because I like you to be able to see what I'm showing. It's like, come on. We haven't had problems with this before. That's another thing that's kind of weird about it.
Usually pretty smooth.
Usually, but it wouldn't be a stream hosted on Ash on Comics without having these errors. Okay. Let's see if we can keep that going. No, apparently we can't because it keeps. Oh, Discord, you just making everything good for us, don't you?
Yeah.
I think it's because I have too many tabs open. Actually, I think it's like a resource thing. How do I do this? I know what I'm gonna do. Gonna go transition it that way so everyone can see that's listening in live. Sorry for everyone's like listening is like, this is great radio. Okay, moving on. So we've got 14 books here, new comics that came out 10/13 today. I know people can't see them if they're just listening in, but we'll talk about them. Any ones that are worth mentioning. Is there any ones here, Skip, that catch your eye that if you're going through the store, you might pick up, maybe purchase or think about it?
I see a few. Homesick Pilots by Dan Waters and Casper Winyard is a book that I had put for a little while because I started reading and I really get it. Went and read Limbo, their book previous, and it was an excellent book that was totally kind of kilter in its own thing. And then I came back to Homesick Pilots and I ended up reading 1 through 5 again, and it totally made sense this time. Even feels like it happens in the same world. Feels like it's an extension of Limbo. And now I've been really, really enjoying it. So this is the last issue, possibly for the story. I think it'll wrap up the entire story from what I understand. So I went ahead and grabbed it, and I grabbed 6. I grabbed 7 through 10 because 6 wasn't there. So I'm going to go ahead and catch up on this story as well as I go to it. So that was one of them.
All right. Curious to see May's book. I don't know really anything about this. Is the number one. This is, well, at least the number one subscribed to by users of the League of Comic Geeks website. Do you know anything about this book?
I do. It was a book that I was initially interested in. And then once it came around, I decided that I wasn't as interested after I opened it up and took a look at it. So I took it off my pull list and I didn't buy it. But I went to go see, let's say, friend of the show, friend of the channel, Buddy Yule, out at Fantastic Comics in Berkeley, California. And I was this is the first time I met him in person. He told me how much he liked Jeff Lemire and kind of told me some more books and stuff that I hadn't read before. And I was like, I don't have in my book to get another trade, but how about I squeeze in number 1? And I ended up reading it. And it was Jeff Lemire, extremely well paced, things along quite nicely, and an interesting cliffhanger with the interesting premise as well. So I went ahead and grabbed it and enjoyed it so much that I want to see where the story goes. So I'm on board for number 2.
Cool. Well, how did I not know about this book? Actually, I'm sitting here looking, and it's the same creative team that did my favorite ongoing series that recently got wrapped up, Ascender. Jeff Lemire and Dustin Nguyen.
So Jeff Lemire and Dustin Nguyen did a variant cover for it, but actually the script and the art is Jeff Lemire as one team.
Oh, okay. I see.
Mm-hmm.
I see.
Yeah.
Not quite as enticing then.
Yeah. Hence me saying I opened up the book and then I decided to take it off my full list. That was part of the reason why.
Yeah, Jeff, Jeff, you're a good writer. Like I said, Ascender is one of my favorite books in recent years, and I highly recommend that series. But Geoff, look, you can draw better than me, but you're you're kind of in the minor leagues. You haven't earned your way to the majors. But hey, if people are liking to spend their money on it, I definitely want to read this. I just like Lemire. Some of my favorite things in recent times have been Jeff Lemire books.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and I'll give him this, like where he, like visually, where it may not be appealing as far as the storytelling, he is a very solid visual storyteller. So as the sequence of events and emotions and things like that, it does work well with his script. It's just that, of course.
Well, Doug Johnson in the chat, he points out Army of Darkness 1979. He says that issue was really fun. I typically don't read Army of Darkness comics, even though I'm a big Army of Darkness fan, hence my my online alias name. But I'm glad to hear that. This particular book was one of the few ones where I was like, hey, this doesn't look totally stupid. So I'm glad to hear that, Doug, and keep us posted on that. Blade Runner Origins is on my pull list. I'll definitely be grabbing that. Norse Mythology. This is the second series. This is a Neil Gaiman run with P. Craig Russell as well. It's not a book that entices me to collect in floppy form. I feel like I really want to get this in like collected though. Like I'm a big fan of Norse mythology. Neil Gaiman is a legendary writer. Seems kind of like a no-brainer to check out. All right, we got the next set of 14 books. Any standouts here on the comic rack?
I've mentioned Compass, and it was a very fitting ending to that story. It was like almost kind of Indiana Jones meets Laura Croft, and it seemed like those two already kind of intersect, But yeah, put them together. A very interesting kind of treasure adventure story that takes place in what is now. So that was pretty. Justin Greenwood, my buddy, did a fantastic job on it. And in Six Sidekicks of Trigger Keaton, I have not gotten that one, but it's a book that I continue to love. Very funny, plotted very well. It's a very quirky kind of book, but it's one of those ones that you don't expect as, and then you get through it, and it's almost like. It almost has the appeal and kind of charisma of something like The Simpsons, just like a show that once you get into it, it's its own world. It's got its own personality, and it ends up pulling you in. Those ones are pretty good. What about you, Ash?
Well, I was fortunate enough to be kindly gifted a Monster Kill Squad #1, and I really loved it. So seeing this here, it's both exciting and kind of a little bit of a letdown because, as we know, my misfortune of not being within how many miles, I don't know, of getting Bad Idea books. So these are super hard for me to acquire. I really like this book. If this was on the shelf in my local store, it would absolutely be on my pull. That's a cool. The Bad Idea books. Really cool. So that's the cool one. Compass is something that you have been talking about, and it's really piqued my interest. I definitely want to get a chance to check that out sometime. And then I think Telepaths over at AWA is interesting because I like J. Michael Straczynski, and I really have been excited ever since they announced this studio that they're going to do this new shared universe. And that's what I love. One of the things I love about comics is a shared universe. And DC and Marvel have just decided to completely abandon that concept, and Valiant has decided they don't like making good comics anymore, and so I'm kind of like, oh. And then when AWA came out, I was like, oh, this is really exciting. What are you guys gonna do? J. Michael Straczynski is part of your, like, he's part of the core creative team. Like, he's one of the architects of this whole line. And I'm like, fantastic, I'm a fan. And then all they've been doing, not all, mostly what they've been doing is these unrelated horror books, which are all good. Every one I've read, I'm like, this is solid, like really good. Ooh, another one. I haven't read a single bad thing that this company has produced, which makes it a little bit harder to even, go through. I was like, man, if you guys just put all this effort into the shared universe, you guys would be fantastic. It's like they're just dripping it out a little bit at a time. I think this is like the third book of the shared universe. They had Erratic, Moths,
Telepath.
Yeah.
I thought one more of because Resistance kicked it off.
Resistance is sort of like the building blocks. It's the foundation.
Yeah.
So it's not really. It is a book, but it's not meant to be. Like, it's more of, here's how it all comes together, and then all the other books can spin off of it.
Yeah. I think there is one more.
There might be.
Just not coming to me right now.
Well, anyway, so that's one of the things that attracts me. I hope they build up steam. Marvel wasn't built in a day, so perhaps we just need to be a little bit more patient. We'll just kind of go through, I guess, just the dregs. If you don't make it in the top 2 tiers, you're one of the dregs. Do you see anything as I'm kind of scrolling down through any of this?
I hear good things about one to fight. Or no one left to fight it. So I'm going to check that out. I on good authority that was actually a very, very good book, and someone had it close to their pick of the week. So
wow,
that'll be one of them.
All right.
What about you? You seeing anything?
I'm seeing some weird stuff. ETER. That's another AWA book. Oh, look at that. That's really strange.
Might be something to check out. AWA.
There's a Rick and Morty spin-off comic for fans of Rick and Morty.
Okay.
I'm not one of them, but I know that it has its diehard fans. People love Rick and Morty.
Yes.
And the last book is called Bastards of the Cosmos. Like, I want to check that out just for that title.
A name, yeah.
It's bizarre. Dragon Majesty in the chat says King Grimlock is fun. It's a Transformers book from IDW, and he also seconds the Monster Kill Squad.
Heck yeah!
All right, let's get to
Dragon
the.
Majesty.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just agreeing with Dragon Majesty.
Let's get to the shout out books. Every week, we like to shout out about 2 to 3 books that we're reading, and we're going to start including our pick of the week, which will be the previous week's book. So the last Wednesday, whatever indie book was our number 1. The first shout out book is a pick by Skip. It is the lot number 4. Shout it out.
Lot number 4. This was the last issue in the book, in the series. Marguerite Bennett, and I always have difficulty pronouncing the artist's name. But interesting noir story, kind of around like from old Hollywood, not too old, like back in the 70s up until like recent days. And it was an ending I did not expect. Very, very interesting, extremely engaging, very fulfilling, and very, very meta about the entertainment industry as a whole. And I just feel like it was a very well executed book with some of the most contrasted, stark graphic art that I've seen in a very long time. I highly recommend this book.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I do like the art. This is the kind of black and white art I like. Line art is cool sometimes too, but it can sometimes be hard to read. I like looking at it when it's just illustrations, but you know what I'm saying? And when you have this, when you're actually using the shading in lieu of the coloring, I feel you get a lot more of the tone and the depth. I do like the look of this book.
Absolutely, it's great. Like it completely cover to cover, it lives up. What about you, Ash?
My
What you
first
got?
shout out is Chicken Devil #1. I got a chance to read this. Now, this came out last week, and I like the look of this book. I was like, yeah, this is a neat book. Like, I like the name. It's called Chicken Devil. And then my boys over there at another channel you guys have probably heard about, maybe not, I don't know. Lost in Comics. They've come by a couple times here to show some support. They were talking about this book, and some people were over there picked this as a top book, and I was like, really? Okay. It's like, it's not just a gimmick, huh? Let me go check it out. So I did, and it's pretty cool. There are things about it that if I was going to be critical, I would, and maybe I'll do a separate video featuring this on my channel about the book. It's worthy of a review. The first half of the book, I was like, I'm really not sure. But by the time I got to the end, when I got to the last page, I was like, yeah, I want to read more. Like, there is a certain style to this book. It's kind of wonkers, which the cover, I believe, perfectly leads into this. If you look at that and you're just like, what you see on that cover is kind of what you're going to get. It's an offbeat, kind of a crime story. There's a lot of Breaking Bad feel to it, but in a less serious way. I feel like it's like if Breaking Bad was a little bit more tongue in cheek and not so deadpan serious. Maybe if you mixed Breaking Bad with a little Pulp Fiction, or just in the style of like that sort of almost like Pulp. How like Pulp Fiction is kind of a comical world.
Yeah.
Like you look at Pulp Fiction, like that's not the real world. It's very dark humor. Everything's just bizarro. Like to the whatchamacallit? I'm drawing a blank. I hate my brain, man. What do you call those places, the stores that when you pawn shop?
Diners?
God, man.
Oh, pawn shop.
I'm like, I couldn't think of the term pawn shop. I keep thinking. I'm not going to tell you what I was thinking, but I was like, okay, the pawn shop scene. Like, it's just over the top. You're just like, that's just. Anyways, this book is kind of like that in that way. The over the topness. I mean, not the weird sexual deviant way. Yeah, it's a neat book. I definitely recommend, if people are interested at all in anything that I've said about this so far, if you like the cover, check out #1. Aftershock has been making some waves lately. That they had a big book called We Live that is shot up through the roof for collectability. A lot of their books have been being talked about, so they're kind of a publisher to watch out for. Had a lot of fun with this. Like I said, it's fun.
Awesome. Yeah, it's funny. I heard some people that I trust their taste talking about it too. By the time I went back for it, it was already gone. But I guess cover C was late, so cover C got released this week, and I was able to grab one and put it in my saver. So that one right there, the version cover. Yeah.
Oh, it's like a little cutout mask. Nice.
Yeah. So I will be able to read it, and
I'll be very curious to hear what you have to say about it. You may love it.
Mm-hmm.
You might, because it doesn't have. There's no gratuitousness to this book, which is what I kind of appreciated. That there is violence, but there's not like what a lot of modern books kind of do. That it's like, oh, we got to show, crazy over the top violent, like, to be shocking. It doesn't really do that. The shockingness is almost just in the bizarreness of the story of like, wow, this is really what happens. So yeah.
Awesome. I'm excited to read it.
Yeah. Cool. So your second shout out is Monster Squad #2. Tell us about this awesome book that I don't get to read.
Monster Kill Squad #2. Just took things up to the next level. Drops you in smooth, no downtime, high octane. Got a pretty interesting backstory. Christos Gage with some fantastic dialogue. Very very natural feeling. Smooth well. Very off the tongue. Reading it, everybody kind of has their own characteristics. So I would say he's doing fairly good with people having their own individual voices, which is always something that I look for in a comic. I don't like it when the same and I can't tell who's talking if I don't see them, which is rare. Tomas Giorello on the art, incredible lines, and Diego Rodriguez on the covers. Bad Idea Comics. You heard Ash earlier saying how Valiant lost their luster. Well, Dinesh Shamdasani and I believe it's Warren Simons were the people that were owning and running at that time, and of course they sold it off and then started Bad Idea Comics, and ultimately used majority of the talent that they were working at Valiant to come over and do comics, and it just continues to, just the best reading experience consistently that's out there. Like I said, I only got 2 books today. One of them was given to me, so I didn't even have to go to the store. And on the other one, this Monster Kill Squad, I drove an hour just this one book, and I was so freaking happy when I was walking back to my car, and then I was so freaking happy when I got home and I was reading it, and it all just felt completely worth it for me.
Awesome. Well, hopefully I'll be able to track these down. This is a Christos Gage and Thomas Giorello, who is such a fantastic artist. He is the artist of Exo Manowar on the second run during that awesome Dinesh Shamdasani era, 2012 through 2017 of Valiant, before they sold it to some weird Chinese company that's been taking really good care of it. Thomas Giorello's art is so gorgeous. If that Exo Manowar, I couldn't believe it when I was reading these books. I was like, how does little Valiant get artists like this, and Marvel and DC can't? And this is the guy on the cover. The cover art you see on this book, that's what every page looks like. It's astonishing that a book like this, which is only available in 10% of the comic book shops nationwide, doesn't have a digital presence, isn't going to be sold in trade paperbacks. It's just in floppies, and they're just like, we don't care. It's almost like, I feel like Bad Idea is kind of like the Ferrari of comic books, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Ferrari's like, we're not making economy cars. We're not making SUVs. We're just making premium sports cars, and you got to get on a waiting list if you want one, and you're going to pay top dollar. But when you get your Ferrari, you're going to be stoked. And a lot of people are going to be like, oh, man, I wish I could have a Ferrari. That's what I feel like. That's what these are. They're premium exotic sports cars, but you get what you pay for. Absolutely. This is not a gimmick. Fantastic. So, good pick, Skip.
Thank you.
My pick, the next shout out, is Echolans. #2 came out. And before I do that, too, I would say, I saw in the chat before I skip over, Doug Johnson said he wants to shout out He Who Fights with Monsters, which I don't know too much about, but thanks for shouting that out. Echolans is a book, Skip, that you got me to read, because I do listen to what you say sometimes. And we had a conversation about this, and you were kind of hot on it back when issue #1 came out. And so I gave it a look-see, and I was like, oh, I kind of like what this book is doing. And then I flipped through it, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this first about Echolans. You need to go see a physical copy from your shop. Like, check this book out. It is also, much like a Bad Idea book, it is premium. I don't know if it's as premium, but it's like 90-95% as premium. It's right up there. It's presented, when you look at it in the cover, it's a, portrait view, because it sits on the shelf like a normal comic. But the binding, it's a staple bound comic, but the binding is at the top of the book. So you actually turn the book, 45 degrees, 90 degrees, counterclockwise, whatever, you flip the book sideways and you read it in its landscape view. Now this is different than what landscape comics have been in the past, where they're more like a calendar, like, you just have like your normal comic and you just turn the book sideways and you flip it up like a calendar. This is not like that. You actually still flip it sideways. It's just wide view. There have been some books presented this way in the past that I've really loved. Like if you get the hardcover version of 300, you get the landscape format. It's different than the comics. I don't know how Frank Miller did this, but he did it. And it's gorgeous. This book is a floppy version like that. Now, it's not just a gimmick, because the art utilizes every square inch of that landscape. And it's designed to be read not just one landscape section at a time. It uses the entire, like the double, like, so imagine opening this book up. You have the left side and the right side, and imagine that's all one gigantic page. That's how it utilizes the art. And it allows the artist to do things you just could not do otherwise. And in some cases, it really works. Some cases, you're like, this is a little experimental. I just said it's not a gimmick, and I'm about to say it feels gimmicky. But the reason I say it's not a gimmick is because they're actually utilizing it. I just feel like this is something new. There's not 80 years of tradition that's informing how you do comics this way. So they are kind of feeling around, but it's absolutely a trip. And it's if you are a person like me who believes comics are a visual medium, yes, I want great writing, absolutely. But I don't want great writing at the expense of stick figure art. I want to be blown away by art. Both of them, it's like a hand in hand, it's a marriage. If you can get a comic with great writing and great art, that's when the magic happens. I think the art in this book is a little better than the writing, but the writing is interesting enough that it keeps me going. I'm engaged. It's very much a fantasy fairy tale kind of story, very weird, kind of violent. It's not for kids. But I'm enjoying it. It has a very indie, passionate feel about this. Like this feels like a book that someone wanted to make for themselves. It's not trying to just be a mass market, hey, we're going to try to make the next great thing to pitch to Netflix or anything like that. No, this feels like a book that the creator's like, oh man, I've been wanting to make this book my entire life, and they're just doing it for them, and they're just letting you come along for the ride. So much to the fact that when you get to the end of this book, there's interviews about, with the creators talking about stuff. There's like a letters page and all that kind of stuff you've seen before. But what you haven't, he puts a song list at the back of each issue that is essentially him, the artist or the creators sharing, like, this is the music that I was listening to when I made this book. And it's really extensive. I think this issue, it was like almost 10 pages of music. It was like I was like flipping and flipping and flipping. I was like, oh my God. But I'll tell you what, I was so kind of involved in this book, and I could feel the passions of the creators that I'm kind of like, I want to go listen to some of this music. Some of the music I recognize. Some of it's like, oh, I listen to that. And then other things I'm like, oh, I don't know. I'm going to go check this out. Like, I kind of want to listen to that music and go back and visit these books. This is an art piece. Check it out. It may not be for everyone, but it's cool. And you got to see one for yourself. Take it out, flip it open, see it. It's breathtaking. Skip, do you have anything to say about this book? I know you're the one that got me onto it.
Only that issue number 2 is waiting for me at my shop, so he the punch. I can't
beat you to the
punch.
Wait. I beat Skip. Yes, I'm number 1.
You are number one, man. Enjoy it while it lasts.
All right. Well, then we'll move right along. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about Echolans in the future since you're still getting it. We're going to move right along to Skip's pick of the week. Skip, tell us about A Righteous Thirst for Vengeance.
Yeah, Rick Remender, Andre Hull. Sure, I messed that up, but very interesting book, very interesting first issue. Just kind of like a caper, almost like a whodunit type of thing. Following along a gentleman on a journey to a specific location. You get little tiny bits of his character. He, runs into and interacts with different people along his journey to get to this particular location. But by the time you get there and we kind of find out, what has happened at that location, things are kind of left up to him to trace back his steps and see if he can make sense of the scene that he arrives at once he gets to where he's going. But it is a bit of a thriller. It was paced extremely well. The colors are fantastic. It's actually Chris O'Halloran, who is the colorist for The Ice Cream Man, my favorite ongoing indie comic book, or actually my favorite ongoing comic book, period. And even the atmosphere of it, I noticed it wasn't just visually, but some of the story beats and some of the same things that you get visually from the Ice Cream Man universe appeared within this book, little Easter eggs and things in the background. So it almost felt like Rick Remender's version of like a more grounded Ice Cream Man issue. But regardless of that fact, just everything about it so far are the makings of the types of comics that usually keep me interested.
Well, you had said earlier that this was your pick of the week, and we talked about this on Discord, and I was like, what?
Yep.
So I was like, I got to try this book. If this, because, that means something to me. So I went and tried this book, and I very much liked it as well. It didn't quite make my pick of the week, but that's no slight against this book. My pick of the week is a good book. This was definitely runner-up. I very much enjoyed this book. Rick Remender is one of those writers that I recognize and go, Rick, you know how to tell a tale. You just oftentimes tell a story I don't want to read. And this was a time where I was like, oh, I really do want to read more of this book. This book hooks you. By the time it's over, you're like, I need more now. That's how I felt, at least. And one thing I really appreciated in this book, that the whole time I was reading it, is I remembered something in an interview that I just recently watched on the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel, where they had Chris Claremont on, which, by the way, I highly recommend anyone who is interested in Chris Claremont and wants to see something that's a little bit more down and dirty than the Amazon Prime documentary that they did on him, which is also a fine thing, but that one's a lot more about celebrating his works at Marvel. This is a little bit more behind the curtain type stuff. And one of the things he talked about was about writing. And I think it was him. I might be. Hopefully I'm not confusing this with someone else, but I'm pretty sure it was him. He was talking about writing and someone criticizing him about, putting so many words of this and then something else that didn't have any words. And he's like, what are you talking about? I wrote all that. Like, that's what you see. I wrote that, just because there's not words. Writing is more than just words. And this book is very much like that. I would say 2/3 of this book is silent, meaning there's no dialogue, there's no narration boxes, but it's very cinematic. And if you pick this book up and you read it, anyone's listening, please don't burn through the book. Because I know a lot of people have that tendency to be like, oh, I just burned through this book in 2 minutes because there's not a lot of text to read. Well, you aren't supposed to read it like a movie on fast forward. Comic panels are designed in such a way to carry a beat like music, right? And if you put on a favorite album and you play it at fast forward, it's not going to be fun to listen to. Same thing with a comic book. Take those panels. The bigger panels are designed to be like a longer pause. Smaller panels, quicker beats. I'm not really I don't want to try to teach you how to read comic books or anything, but just consider that, because I know I'm only saying that because I catch myself doing it all the time, and I have to be like, whoa, put the brakes on, you know. And when you do that with this book, when I was doing that, I put on some good music, which I find when I read a book to music, it helps me carry that beat and go at a pace. It's amazing the way that this goes through. And I have to say, I didn't see this at first, but the character here on the cover, who seems to be the main character, when I first saw this cover for the book, I immediately thought of Japanese actor, filmmaker Takeshi Kitano, who's done quite a few different movies. One of his more famous movies is Outrage. And I was like, oh, this looks like one of those. So for those of you that know, if you don't know what I know, just Google Takeshi Kitano or Outrage the movie. You'll see what I mean. And then someone, I think was in Discord, we're talking about, or somewhere, someone was like, oh yeah, that looks like Benedict Wong. And I was like, that wasn't what I was thinking. And now I can't unsee it. And then when I read the book, I was thinking about that the whole time. And I'm like, dang it. This book feels like a vehicle that Rick wrote for Benedict Wong to be and like make a movie. What do you think, Skip?
Like, that's what it kind of feels like. I was actually the person that mentioned it looking like Benedict Wong, and what reminded me of it is that Benedict Wong was cast in Rick Remender's show Deadly Class, which was produced by the Russo brothers. So there was already that connection from Benedict Wong, you know, or being Wong in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and of course the Russo brothers being a large part of that as directors. So I think it is exactly, you know, what you said. Seems like he's, you know, probably got with him and got permission to use his likeness, and, you know, hopefully, you know, hoping that this gets picked up by, you know, some company. But I mean, Rick Remender, like, if anyone's in line next to get one of those Netflix deals where they just adopt, you know, a creator's entire universe, you know, or
Right.
have, you know, the first rights of refusal or whatever to everything that they do, it would be Rick Remender. His Giant Generator label has been producing so much stuff, from Black Science to Seven to Eternity. Of course, Deadly Class already got ticked off of that list. Fear Agent, Tokyo Ghost. I mean, like, I'm low. Like, there's so much stuff. He's got Scumbag now and Death or Glory. So this this almost feels like the deal is done. It's just not announced, but the comic was already on its way out, so they just put it out, because this totally feels like it would be adapted.
Yeah, and I hope so. When I say this, I don't mean to say it like flippantly, because you know, there's kind of a joke going around about how so many comics feel like they're just Netflix pitches, and sometimes that's like a negative. And that's true. It does feel like some people, they don't care about the book. It is just a Netflix pitch, and that can be a bad thing. This doesn't feel like a Netflix pitch. This feels like a good comic. Like, Remender understands writing for sure. Like I said, my only problem with Rick is sometimes just the content, like what he's writing, are just things that don't appeal to me, not the writing itself. I go, oh, that was good. I don't really want to read this. So this is a story I do want to read. It's right up my alley so far. And I seeing Benedict Wong, I'm just like, I want to see it turn into a movie or a show because I'm enjoying it. And I think it'd be awesome to see Benedict Wong, I can't even say his name, Benedict Wong, in a role like this, because I've never seen him as this kind of person. He's just a very jovial kind of guy who, you know, at least he's cast that way. So seeing this,
until you watch Deadly Class,
that's true. I haven't
that way in that show.
Okay, I haven't seen that. So, yeah, I very much enjoyed this. You guys, I don't know what else really to say. This is definitely a worthy book to pay attention to. let's get on with the. What do you have any final thoughts? Like, this is your pick.
Yeah, I would just encourage people to check it out. And if you have not watched the Deadly Class show yet, I cannot suggest it enough. It is like, even if you've never read the comic before, it was such an underrated show. It was incredible. So check out the Deadly Class show and check out more Rick Remender books.
So we got a question in the chat from Doug Johnson. Is it as good as Scumbag? I only read the first couple of issues of Scumbag. That's one of those comics that I was hinting at about content not wanting to read about. I like this better, but that could just be my bias. Now, Scumbag does have amazing art. Like that. If you like, I mean, it's called Scumbag. it's a Scumbag book. So if you like reading about scumbags, that book may be up your alley, for sure. I like this better so far, but I've only read a little bit of either one.
I like this better too, easily.
All right. So my pick of the week isn't going to be mentioned on this, because my pick of the week is our feature for tonight. It's Firepower issue 16. Dun dun dun! Surprise, surprise. So I figured it was kind of pointless to talk about it and give a shout out when we're going to be featuring it. So we'll be getting into that book. This Skip, by the way, before we get into the details of it, this was my favorite issue of Firepower in the new arc.
Okay.
What about you?
I'm gonna say it's my second favorite.
Okay.
Out of the new arc.
All right.
Mm-hmm. It's up there.
All right. Well, we all have different tastes.
But
all the issues
but our
have
tastes
actually
are
been
very
really
similar, because we're not far off.
We're not far off, and all the issues have been good. Like, it's not like it's not like, oh, they've all sucked up until this issue, you know. So hopefully can get this to play, because that's gonna. All right, so sorry for those of you listening in. I'm trying to manage things that are breaking and keep talking about it. Skip, why don't you give us a synopsis real quick of what has happened? I guess there's like the little blurb you can read. What's happened leading up to this issue?
Yeah. Let's see here. Sorry, I spilled a bunch of stuff on my. So I was like trying to clean that up as you were talking. Got my book.
Oh, I got you on the spot. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's all right. We're both on the spot. All right, let's see. Okay, so previously, while protecting the Johnson family, Ling Zan was away from her own from her. Serpents attacked the Scorched Earth clan and overtook the entire island. After Owen was unable to reach Wei Lun, he became concerned that the Temple of the Flaming Fist could be next. Leaving the kids safe with their grandparents and under Reggie's charge, Owen, Kelly, and Ling Zan headed out to investigate further, but they may not like what they find.
All right.
Yeah, that whole sequence of events to get to that point was something else.
Well, Skip, I'm not able to fix these technical difficulties. I thought I was going to be able to. I can show it on the YouTubes, but I can't seem to get it to play for you. But you got a copy of the book in front of you, so I will just follow along as you talk about it as we normally do, and I think it'll all work out.
Do me a favor real quick. How about you just talk about a little bit of the beginning, and I'll be back in like 3 minutes, because I do have a major spill that I gotta.
Okay. Well, I'll talk about the opening of the book here. So we open up with this issue of Firepower, and we've got the kids playing at home, and I'm always tickled pink when it features Peanut Butter, the dog. I love that detail. Just little things like that just really add flavor to books. The book would probably work without it as well, but I think too many creators kind of skip out on those little details, thinking they're not important, when they can really add, those little fine touches. And we got this, the kids are kind of stressed out, and so they're kind of lashing out at each other, and they get attacked by the Serpent's Crown, that lady that we've seen before. And not to worry, Mom's partner has been watching. He's like jumps over the fence, and he's like, "Kids, run, get in the house!" And we immediately into a fight. Page 2. So this book jumps off. If anyone's been having complaints about Firepower, kind of, with the arc 2 being a little bit of a slow burn, this book is not it. It's right on page 2. Bam, we got a villain attacking, and I'm struggling to remember. Someone in the audience put the name of this character. I can't remember off the top of my head. Oh, Reggie. Reggie, yeah, is his name. And so they get in a fight, and then it cuts off over to the temple. So this first scene I really liked. I'm really invested in the family. I think some people might overlook this value and just be like, oh, whatever. I'm not here to read about the kids or the dog or anything like that. I want to see kung fu fighting. And I kind of get that. But consider that the kung fu fighting and the action scenes that you do get in the book are more meaningful because they involve characters that you know and care about. It's not just random acts of action. And that's one of the things that makes Firepower stand out to me. And I really like family books like this. I think what Kirkman here is doing is what used to make Fantastic Four work so well, being a family book. It's one of the reasons I love The Incredibles, and why I say The Incredibles is the best Fantastic Four movie ever made, probably ever will be made. That's really sad to think about. But it works for Firepower. I think Kirkman has done an incredible job as a person observing humans. I think he gets the kids pretty believable. There's so many comic writers that just don't know how to write kids. And most of the time I hate seeing kids in comics just because they don't feel real. They feel like adults in kid bodies, and they just act and behave and talk. And I'm like, do you ever get out of the house, writer? This is not how kids are. Anyways, so this would normally be where I'd pass off to Skip and ask what his thoughts are, but he's got a bit mess to clean. So, Skip, if you're listening, you can jump in at any time because I don't know when you're back otherwise. We cut over to the temple over in, I'm assuming this is in China, could be in Tibet. They never actually said where this is. And I believe this is the temple of the Scorched Earth. I get a little bit confused. There's the Flaming Fist and the Scorched Earth. I'm having trouble keeping track, actually, which ones, because they kind of go back and forth, and anyways, I think this is the Flaming Fist. Yes, it is the Flaming Fist. That's right. So we see the dirigibles or the blimps or whatever, the airships coming in. This is kind of not a recap, but it's an echo of what happened at the finale of the previous arc when they had the big battle. And Master Wei Lun is wasting no time. He jumps into a catapult. He's telling one of the students there or whatever to basically launch him. He fire, and he hesitates, and he just shouts him. He's like, you hesitate like this in a battle? If this is an attack, I wish to know before the arrows fly. Now fire! And again, immediately, wasting no time, no slow burn. Boom! We get to see Wei Lun shot across the sky in a catapult towards the blimp, and it's a pretty cool action shot. I like how Samnee captures this here in this 3-panel spread. this book has this book is feeling more and more cinematic, and I really hope that Kirkman not evolves, but like really plays into that. You know, the early Firepower books, everything's been great so far, but it's felt kind of grounded. And my thoughts were like, look, if you're gonna have a guy who can throw fireballs, if you're gonna have a dragon theoretically or whatever, like you're gonna have that fantasy element, let's let loose. Like, let's have it. Like, what's the point of grounding everything super realistic if you have those things? And perhaps this might be Kirkman just slowly leaking out so that he doesn't evolve things too quickly. And that way it keeps things being, you know, kind of spectacular, because every time something new, you're like, whoa. If you go straight to 11, then you don't leave anything in your back pocket. So hopefully that's what he's doing. Yeah, we get this cool scene. Wei Lun crashes in, and he sees everyone dressed up in their little quote-unquote ninja garb, and he's like, so this is an attack. And he starts whooping some ass. And he comes straight with, what's this? Is this Chao Feng?
That is Chin Zul.
Chin Zul, that's right. And he's the leader of the Scorched Earth. And he has been infected or possessed, however, by the serpent's omen. You can see the snake on his neck is the sure sign, and his eyes glowing bright yellow-green. And he says, now you will see what we are capable of when we are not confined by your bars. And you can see kind of a look of apprehension there from Wei Lun. He's knows this guy is kind of a match for him. This is kind of his mortal enemy. And we'll stop at that scene. It sounds like Skip is back. Skip, do you have anything you want to talk about leading up to this part? I've kind of said my piece.
No, pro tip for everyone. Don't spill wine in your lap on your beige carpet.
Ooh.
Other than that, everything that got us up to this part, we were kind of, we wanted to see some action and some progress on this. And like you said, Ash, they did, you know, Samnee and Kirkman didn't make us wait for it. We got in the catapult with Wei Lun, and they shot us straight into the action. Yeah, so from the next scene, Zahn and Owen, and they are back on the island, just kind of assessing things, noticing that it extremely quiet and really no one is there. That's just a quick scene. I don't really think there's I mean, is there really anything that you wanted to expound upon on that particular scene, Ash?
Expounding on it, no, it's just a quick cutaway, just I think for the reader to. Meanwhile, here's what the other characters are doing. They arrive to basically be like, where is everybody? We know where the reader knows where they are.
Right. Yeah, we know, and of course, you know, just for continuity's sake, you know, the characters take the journey of finding out what we already know, and I appreciate that. Sometimes sometimes we as the reader are ahead of some of the characters, but I can appreciate a writer knowing that and still carrying a continuity that they take the characters along for the ride too. It feels kind of symbiotic, feels very organic.
Yeah.
But anyhow, we get the you know, Owen just talks about how the planes are gone, like none of the aircraft are there. Lingzon knows what that means. That means that they are off to fight, because that's the only time that all of the aircraft are gone, is if it's taken all the ninja, all the warriors off to battle. We cut right back over, and we got Master Wei Lun crashing out of the cockpit thing through the glass with some wings attached, a glider, and then of course some of the ninjas shooting at him. He's able to throw some of the arrows, and then Chin Zul and just come right behind him with some of the same gliders, but they abandon theirs to take Master Wei Lun down. As close to, not far behind them, are the blimp. Those things come to a crash. Boom. Ash.
This is a great scene. As I was saying earlier, while you were cleaning up your mess, one of the things I love about this book and this series is that Kirkman takes time to invest in all the characters and make you care about them. So that when you get action scenes like this, which are just straight up over the top action set pieces, they matter. There's stakes involved. You care about these characters. If I just picked this book up as a issue and I'd never read anything before, I don't think this book would really be impressive to me. I'd be like, oh, okay, look, there's a guy jumping out of a thing. He's flying. There's action scenes, but I don't have the context to feel anything. But it's because everything that he's built up to. This scene was probably one of my favorites in the book. I love the shot of him diving out the window. It brought back kind of imagery of the Last Airbender for those who were fans of that series. I love the little glider, the fight in the air, and then boom, the blimp's crashing in. I mean, bravo to Samnee. And who's the colors on this book? Is it Wilson?
Yep, Matisse.
This panel here where the blimp crashed, I love the coloring on here. It's just super exciting. Like when I read books, most comics, especially books like this, my brain kind of like fills in the blanks between panels, and it's very cinematic to me, especially if you've got good art. And my brain is imagining this like as a movie, and I'm seeing. I'm not literally watching this frame animated, but my mind is imagining this scene before and afterwards, and how this might look on screen, type of thing. And so when you can do that as an artist, I think that you're doing your job well. And shout out, of course, to the colorist. Just really enhances this.
Good old Matt Wilson, doing his thing, winning his Eisner. All right, we jump back over, and we have Kelly's partner, and I always forget his name. I believe it's Reggie Miller. We got Reggie Miller up here trying to throw it off the Serpent's Omen lady, and here comes Haley out of nowhere. She tries to come with an RKO out of nowhere, catches an RKO of her own, but Grandpa comes right from behind, bashes the Serpent Omen lady over the head with a cast iron frying pan. But she pins Grandpa up against the wall and kind of throws Haley off. And in an emotional, in the heat of the moment, Kelly, bam, produces a fireball, throws it at the Serpent's Omen lady, and she goes into her snake mode, and they scurry off because they don't want the smoke. And everybody's kind of licking their wounds and recovering, and Reggie at that point is pretty much letting them know, like, hey, I've done the best that I can for you, but I'm not going to be able to continue to protect you kids, and we definitely can't stay here anymore. All right, Ash, what'd you think about this reveal that felt like it was coming, but we finally got it?
Yeah, I again, this goes back to what I've been saying about the family and like what matters. I like that in this particular issue, it feels like there's just action like everywhere, and he's just skipping back, and it's like, oh, boom, here's a scene going on here, quick, cut away, go over to here, boom, now there's action going over here, and like I said, it works because he took several issues to build up to this point, the calm before the storm, and now we're getting that. I've said this many times, I love the Grandpa. He's like, I don't want to say he's comic relief, but he's absolutely levity in the story. He kind of makes me wish he was my grandpa. And I love that the scene, I mean, it just, he gets his swing in with the pan on the back of the head. And in so many other comics, I might just be like rolling my eyes type of thing, because it feels like characters sometimes have plot armor, or you have characters that it's like, wait a second, you can stand up to the villain? Like, that doesn't make any... But here it's clear that he's no match. He just got a lucky hit in, and as soon as the Serpent's Omen chick, gets her bearing, it's just like, foolish human, and she smashes him up against the wall, and he needs Haley to save him. But it's that threat, it's like, oh shit, like they're all out of their league, right? Like, and that's what makes me feel like, oh crap, and Kirkman's a good writer. He's not writing it so it's like, oh, good, it's just a stupid villain. The characters are never invincible. They can just beat anyone. That happens so much in modern comics. Here, I can tell that that's not the case. And Haley has not been able to use her fireballs. Like, that's kind of the big thing. We knew she did it one time, but here the emotion strikes again, and she lets one loose. And now Reggie's, gives his warning. And again, like I just at this point when I'm reading the book, I'm just kind of on for the ride. I'm just like, it's like a roller coaster. I'm just hanging on.
Absolutely. It is quite a roller coaster ride, and it's one that's not over. Cut back over to the scene of the battle. We're back at the Temple of the Flaming Fist, and all out war. We got blimps that are crashing. Fire is everywhere. No surprise, right? And as the two different clans are dueling forth, and we get a reintroduction of this guy. I forgot his name. Oh, Ma Guang. Wow. I literally didn't remember his name when I was reading the book last week. Just pull that name out of nowhere. But Ma Guang fighting with someone from the Temple of the Flaming. Be standing. We see that Chow Fang has been broken out of his prison cell. He's got his big cement bat again, and he is out of his cage, possessed, and ready to lay the smackdown on someone's candy ass. We got Master Wei Lun going at Chen Zul, and as the Serpent's Omen is talking through Chen Zul, Master Wei Lun effectively just kind of makes him stall for a second and goes for his patented Ozzy Osbourne bite to the neck of the serpent. Well, I guess a serpent instead of a chicken this time. Decapitates the snake that was controlling Chen Zul, and Chen Zul kind of comes to, and they're mostly just talking about how how they've known each other, and a battle quite like this is not something that they thought they'd be facing together, but it's an honor for them to be fighting side by side, and they will face whatever this mess is head on. And one of the coolest panels in the book, they jump right into action. Ash, what did you think about that scene?
Loved it. Love this whole scene. Again, it's just wall-to-wall action, right? As soon as they cut away from the family, going back to the temple, we see that it's even more of a wreck than when we last left it. The scene with Ma Guang was a great little sequence. Real quick and sweet, but making you realize, oh, this guy's awesome. I love this whole cartwheel over the head, shooting to the back of the neck, hitting the snake. Like, it's just like, what? It's just badass. And, frees his friend. And he's wasting no time. It's like, we got to keep going. And then, boom, the threat escalates, and we get all the villain team, if you will, crashing out with what's this guy? It's Ma
Guang?
No, the main the bad guy.
Chen Zul.
Chen Zul, yeah, that's wait.
Oh, are you talking about Chow Fang?
Chow Fang, there we go.
Okay.
I really need to write these names down. It's yeah, Chow Fang, he's back in the shadows, and he's got his little super squad, and they're about to face off. You're like, oh geez. And then we cut over back to Fei Lun, or Wei Lun, and he's fighting Chen Zul, and he does the snake thing that you talked about, and you mentioned the Aussie. And it's funny, the book even actually mentions, he makes a reference, and he actually calls these, just call me Alice Cooper. And it's like there's a little bit of like self-awareness in the writing, which I think is funny because that's where our brains went to. And I like when a writer is adept enough to know what his audience is going to interpret and see. So yeah, I loved, and it just all leads up. They see the temples in ruins again. It's like, geez, it just seems like they just fixed this place up. And that, yeah, jumping together to fight when we've been mortal enemies this whole time because of some other previous grudges that apparently were all just deception and what have you, and now they're now they're comrades fighting for the same cause.
Absolutely. And we're catching up to the latecomers to the battle. We got Kelly, um, Ling Zan, and Owen jumping into battle. They are jumping out of a plane, and they are doing some skydiving to get down there to the island, since all the other normal craft were taken into battle. I do really like the figures in this particular panel. Samnee just captures some awesome imagery there of them coming into the battle. But we have Ma Guang, Chen Zul, and Wei Lun versus Chao Feng, and they are all going at it, all three of them. Here comes Owen out of nowhere, taking out some of the ninja. And now that everybody's reunited and all fighting together in the heat of the battle, while everyone is just trying to defend themselves and stand their ground, we get we go over to Master Shaw's statue, and we get a bunch of snakes that start slithering and crawling right around it. And as Chao Feng is calling out that it is time for the awakening, the snakes begin to glow, and it is revealed that Master Shaw has returned from his stone likeness back into his fleshly corporal status, and he has officially become the newcomer that has joined the fight. And that is where the issue ends. Ash, take it away.
Wow, I did not see this coming, Skip. We've been theorizing about Master Shaw almost every episode since we've been doing this. And we've come up with all sorts of different ideas. Is he real? Is he not real? What's going on? Oh, maybe it's just a folklore thing, and that the whole reference of him returning, it's not literal, it's figurative, that he'll be returning essentially through one of his ancestors. All these different ideas. And I think all those ideas had merit no matter which way they came. But true to a good storyteller, this was not one of the theories. I don't think anyone ever was like, what if the Serpent's Omens bring him back to life? Like, no one. So when I got to this page, I was like, what? And I just did not see him coming back to be potentially the main villain. It's a super cliffhanger. This might be the biggest cliffhanger of the series so far.
It might be. This is something that we wanted to see, but not something that we saw occurring here in this issue. But it all makes sense in the context of it. Like, as you look back towards the whole battle and kind of we're heading, but definitely when I thought of, issue number 16, I did not think that we were finally going to get, Master Shaw coming back into play. So now issue number 17 is going to be one of the highest selling ones in a while, because anybody that's kind of been waiting around or waiting for the trades or whatever, once they find out what's going on, they're going to want to know what happens next. So that one's going to...
Yeah, I don't know how you wait for the trade on this. Right. I'm going to be like reading this in my car as soon as I pick it up from the shop. I can walk out, get in my car, open it up. Because I got to know.
Yeah, won't be leaving the parking lot without knowing.
Yeah, just this is... This was fantastic. I mean, I enjoyed all the other aspects of this book, but it's nice. I know on our Discord channel, Zach, other boy Zach, those of you guys know, he commented on this book, and he was saying like, kind of felt like a slow burn. I was like, are you out of your mind? I was like, what part of this book was a slow burn? This was like wall to wall, just action scenes throughout, and yeah, kind of funny. I don't know. Maybe he was just trolling me, but it's nice. I don't want every issue to be this way. I think the heart and soul of this book is not the action, but it's nice to get those moments, and the payoff was real for me. That's why I appreciated this book so much, is because Kirkman has kind of starved us a little bit for some of these action scenes. And I just love these characters. Kirkman is so good at doing ensemble casts like this. Wei Lun is is quickly like one of my favorite just characters in all of comics. And in the letters page, someone actually addresses Kirkman, and he says, you should be making some. I want to see some Firepower action figures. And he's like, if you make a Wei Lun, it's like he talks about it. I just, you can have all my money or something. I don't forget what he says. You can read the letters page yourself. And I was like, oh yeah, for sure. I'm not a big toys person, but if they make a Wei Lun action figure, I will have one. What about you, Skip? This issue as a whole, what's your thoughts?
I really enjoyed it. Some of my favorite poses in a while in some of the comics, and some of my favorite moments, of course, between Chinzul and Wei Lun. After Wei Lun was able to kind of save him and snap him out of that snake days. What do they call it? Those people that play the flute and like do snake dances or make the snakes dance. Like
is it not Hare Krishna? No,
no, it's something.
I know what you're talking about. The snake charmers.
Yeah, the snake charmers. Well, like that little kind of trance that like people are known to kind of get into. It felt like Chinzul was kind of within that, but Wei Lun was able to get him out, and then them going from sworn enemies to now fighting on the same side, and things coming to a head, and them having to dive into the heart of battle together, probably with things being more uncertain than they've ever been. That was a really awesome moment, and like in the simplicity of Kelly, Lingzan, and Owen, like do skydiving out of the plane to get to the island. It was just like very strong, like like postures and posing that Chris Samnee was able to produce. So just some of my favorite parts about it, and of course Master Shaw. We were all waiting for that. Now that he's returned to the battle, the only thing that's left off of the list that I can think of, there's two things. Who are Owen's actual parents, and where is the dragon?
Right. Or what is the dragon?
Mm-hmm. Or why is the dragon?
Or why? Or who?
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I forget who it was. It might have been RDV. Someone was posing to me the idea that what we saw in that underwater cave, where they go and like, just what we thought, dragon's not real. There's no dragon. And as they leave, we see like the scales in the sand. And of course, we're all like, oh no, the dragon is real because we saw those scales. And it's like, well, no, we just saw scales. Serpents have scales, right? We don't necessarily know. That could have been something else that we saw. And Kirkman is really good at that, like really good at like leading you down a certain path and then going like, oh, nope, it was actually this all along. And that's kind of what he does with the Shaw thing here. I just did not see this coming. And in this issue especially, I wasn't like, oh, it's going to be something to do with Shaw this issue. It's just out of the blue. And I love this page that I'm showing up here on display, which is it's the scene where they're kind of all battling and the snakes are moving up. It's a 5-panel shot, and it's just progressively you can see the statue in the distance at first. It's not the focal point. So you're not really paying attention at first, and as you keep going through each panel and you may not even realize until like the 4th panel that the snakes are going to the statue, right? And then you hear the characters talk about like, oh, and then you go back and you see like, oh, he was doing that all along, but he was distracting you because your eyes are focusing on the other characters, and you didn't see what was really happening. And that's kind of how a magician does their tricks, right? They distract you to get you to look at what they want you to see, so you don't actually see the trick being done. And it's a good method of writing. And Kirkman seems to be particularly adept at that. It like that sleight of hand is kind of redirecting. Oh, look over here real quick. And as you look over there, you're like, wait, what? Then he does the magic. You're like, oh, dang it, I missed what you did. So I fully expect something to be like that with the dragon, right? Like, okay, how are you gonna misdirect me here? And I'm looking for it, but I can't see it. I'm having a ton of fun with this book, Skip. This is just fun comics. This is just everything I don't want to say everything comics should be, but because they can be so many things, but sometimes you just want a good, fun adventure comic, characters, good versus evil, black and white type of, and just fun characters that you'd fall in love with. And it doesn't have to be super complex or existential, it just,
Right.
and this book just hits those marks. And I'm just grinning. I'm always smiling after I read one of these books.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they're just very satisfying. Completely consistent. One of the most consistent. Uh, you know, Pacing is almost always great. You're cutting back and forth between scenes with very good timing, usage of the panels and pages. You get callbacks. Every character definitely has their voice. Fantastic colors, incredible, nice thick, lines. I mean, when you pay your money for the comic, and this is not like a premium price comic, you pay your, is it $3.99? Yeah, when you pay your $3.99, you get your $3.99's worth, and you can count on it every time, so you never have to worry, you know, if an issue of firepower is going to be good. The only thing you wonder is how good is it going to be?
Right. Yeah, these books from top to bottom. I really enjoy the letters page on this book. I think letters pages in general are a cool thing, but they can be a little hit or miss depending on like how much participation are they getting from fans, and B, the editors of the book. They select the letters, and let's be honest, sometimes in editors, it's like it's obvious you're just picking people who are, sucking up to the book. And it's not fun to just read every letter like, oh my God, this is the best issue ever. Keep writing. Like, okay, I read, half a dozen letters like that in this issue, and then the next issue will be the same. Like, that's not cool. What I like about this letters page is it feels like the old school. Like, they'll print letters that are criticisms. They'll print letters, just people sharing, how the books affected their lives and things like that, or just have different ideas, weird theory crafting, and the editor and Kirkman actually participates too. Just have fun with it, and it adds just a little bit of extra value because it takes me probably as long to read the letters page as it does to read the whole book. And then after that, you get the RC Coda, which is usually a 2 to 3 page transcript interview that Kirkman and Samnee do every issue, where they have basically like a phone call conversation, and they just do the transcript. They're just talking about a particular issue, like every time, and so it's kind of, you get that little bit of creator insight. And Kirkman likes to kind of razz Samnee and sometimes, and then to talk about how I was drawing the scene because I knew you, the whole thing, shoes. Apparently Samnee hates drawing shoes, so Kirkman found this out. And so he really ramped up the whole Air Jordan thing because he knows I put extra scenes of the Jordans in this book because I knew you hated it. And Samnee will be like, damn you, but they just have good fun, and it really makes you feel a part of the book. And I think that's another value what I'm trying to say about the floppies. If you get this book in trade, you'll get the story and they'll be great. But I'm so glad I'm getting that. This is one of those books that I love feeling a part of month after month. I, of course, am not satisfied, so I like to do this whole show with you and talking about it. This adds a lot of value. I hope everyone that's listening in here feel the same way to some extent, that you guys are getting some extra value of the book. That's why we do this. I mean, why just read a book and close it and forget about it when you can enhance that experience by talking about it, sharing it? Skip theory time. Do you have any theories about where this book is going? What we can expect to see down the road?
I would like to see what's gonna happen with the serpent. With the dragon. I believe that it's going to. I mean, it's obviously out now. It's not. It's no longer like trapped where it was before. So it's out and about in the wild. Really, the question is, when is it going to show up? And I wouldn't be surprised if it's not too far behind, because I'm sure the dragon and Shaw are tied together somehow, and that's something that we'll find out later. So those are kind of the only things I've got for right now. Before, I felt like I might have a little bit of a lead on who Owen's biological parents may be,
Oh.
but I actually feel farther away from that
Oh,
now
okay.
with how Shaw came back into the
Yeah,
picture.
I
But what
feel
about
kind of
you?
that way too. Like I feel like all the theories that were like brewing in my head, I feel like this issue was like put the kibosh on a lot of it. It was like,
Mm,
nope, you were off.
right.
You're like, oh, but that's kind of exciting too, because you're like, oh, okay, well, where is this going?
Hmm.
And I'm sure as the story develops, we'll start having new theories, and then Kirkman will just eventually go, somewhere around issue 30 something and be like, oh, here's the answer. It was totally not what you thought. You're like, dang it. Yeah, I don't know what to think. I'm at a, I, one of my original theories was that Owen was a descendant of Shaw.
Hmm.
That's not out of the books. The return of Shaw hasn't really been defined. Obviously, he's returned and he's working with the Serpent's Omen. But is he doing it of his own free will? Or is he possessed?
Right.
That, I guess, remains to be seen. What do you have a speculation on which way or the other on that?
No, I don't really know even which way to take
Right? There's
that
no
right
there's no
now.
indication. You're like, it could be either way.
Yeah, I mean, which is back to what you were talking about with Kirkman and his whole sleight of hand thing. He's taken us on a long enough and satisfying journey that some of those things that maybe seemed more elementary, the farther we get out on a journey, the farther away we get from those things, and just that alone kind of puts them in a place to kind of go either way. So it's gonna be interesting to find out. That's for damn sure. That's why we gotta keep this journey going.
Absolutely. Well, I think this is about the end of the show time. Time to put a bow on this, wrap it up, put it under the tree. Do you have any last thoughts about anything in particular before we do so?
Um, no, just enjoying Firepower. A lot of the other indie comics that we're talking about, enjoying those too. Thank you all for joining us week after week. This was an extra episode that we snuck in there because of the events and twists that happened in the book. But thanks for everyone who shared some of their indie titles that they're checking out in the chat. We appreciate that. We find some of our favorite books that way, and hopefully you guys are finding some of your favorite books, or at least books that you find more interesting, and kind of enhance your comic book reading world. So thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. And there was a question that was asked a little bit earlier that I couldn't segue into at the time. I was in the middle of talking about the book, but I saw Dominic Powell in the chat had said, what are your favorite independent superhero series? You had answered Hero Trade by Matt Kent and Bad Idea. I don't really have any current superhero books that are independent. I'm not certain any. I mean, unless you count Firepower as superhero, which I'm not really sure I do. But past ones would absolutely be 2012, 2017 Valiant. In particular, the Robert Venditti Exo Man of War. You can get that stuff in trade. Fan freaking tastic. If you want superhero stuff, most of the Valiant titles at that time were great. Exo Man of War, both series. You had Bloodshot. I think Jeff Lemire I think he did 2 runs of Bloodshot. Matt Kent did some. He did some Ninjak, and I think he also did Rye. So great stuff. All good superhero. Like we talked about that before. So I know that's not modern current stuff, but it is all available in trade. So that's if you want if you want indie superhero books, I think that would be where I would direct people. Did you have any others that you would have to add to that, or?
Erratic was
Oh yes, thank you. Erratic. It's only 5 issues, unfortunately, but I hear it's coming back.
I hope so.
I hope so too. I loved Erratic so much.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, I got to say, man, just to put on the coattail, like hang on to your coattails about sharing books. All of my favorite books, Erratic, we just talked about, even the Valiant books, all the books. I mean, even Firepower. The only reason I was reading Firepower is because people recommended it to me. People like Jimmy in the chat. He was one of the people that was like, you got to read this book. You got to read it. All of my favorite books. I can't think of one, maybe except Ascender was the only one I went on and did on my own, you know, are all because of recommendations. I read Layla Starr, a book we featured on the last episode, because people kept pushing, you got to read this book, it's good. Every single one was led to me by another reader or fan that drew it to my attention. So that's the importance of it, I think. That maybe that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I'm not good enough to discover these books on my own. I rely on the help of others. So hopefully that means something to you guys. We're going to go ahead and call this a night. Thank you, Skip, so much for joining me. Hopefully you're able to get that wine out of the carpet. I'm sorry to hear about that. And we'll be back soon for another episode.
Yes, we will.
Until then, read good comics. He's Skip. I'm Ash. Have a great night.